Hi, I'm Rachel, and I'm here to announce my TBR for the Maybe Midrash Readathon. The Maybe Midrash Readathon is being run by Steve Donahue, Jason at Old Blues Chapters and Verse, and Felicia at Little Prairie Library. They ask participants, whether believers or atheists, to read one book of fiction and one book of nonfiction about any world religion. I'll link to their announcement videos down below. As a semi-literate Jewish person, Midrash is a word I'm familiar with. I understand Midrash to be traditional, starting in the 1st century commentary on the Bible. The oldest Midrashim are collected in prominent religious texts, including the Talmud, because man, the Talmud had to be even more complicated. I went on to My Jewish Learning to dip my toe in a little deeper. They divide traditional Midrash into 2 categories. Midrash Halacha has to do with Jewish law and practice, and Midrash Agadah has to do with the biblical narrative, the stories. A Beit Midrash is an institution still in use today. Translated to House of Learning, many synagogues have one, including my own. I will remember you. The space is often used for adult group study and religious instruction and other community events. The general idea of Midrash is not out of style today. That's kind of the point of this readathon, as I understand it. It's important to communicate with religious texts in this day and age. Many works that are effectively Midrashim continue to be published in the modern age. Earlier this year, I read and reviewed 2 novels written by Jewish authors about the character of Noah's wife. And recently, the Book of V by Anna Solomon came out, which links the biblical Esther to 2 contemporary fictional characters. I'll leave links down below. For this readathon, I decided to move away from old-style Midrashim, technically the commentary on the Bible, and focus instead on contemporary Jewish identity. I mean, at least with my fiction. My nonfiction will probably focus a little bit on Midrash Halacha and even maybe Midrash Agadah. The nonfiction book I'm going to read for Maybe Midrash is Here All Along, Finding Meaning, Spirituality, and a Deeper Connection to Life in Judaism, after finally choosing to look there, by Sarah Hurwitz. I read the cover copy on my April 2020 book haul vid, but to summarize, Hurwitz was a lapsed Jew who kind of stumbled into adult education and found a deeper meaning there. She goes on retreats, sits in with families during Shabbat, and I think she's ultimately able to transpose some Jewish theology into her life in the here and now. I've been so excited to get my hands on this book because in terms of seeing yourself in literature, more or less, this is me. I picked up 2 books for Maybe Midrash fiction, but one is a little dicey. Technically, I was going to read it anyway, since it's near the top of my Goodreads TBR. It's Ragtime by E.L. Doctorow. I understand this to have been a very famous book back in the day and that it was even adapted into a musical. It takes place during World War I and it includes some prominent Jewish characters, including Emma Goldman and Sigmund Freud. But I'm not sure it's about Jewish practice so much as it's about American Jewish assimilation. Also, Steve, I had to show you some of this from my used copy because I'm sure you won't be impressed. I don't know if you can see the underlining. So I think my more honest fiction offering for the Maybe Midrash Readathon will be Invisible as Air by Zoe Fishman. Focusing on American literature, I've long been on the hunt for a novel about deeply identified Jews who aren't A, Haredi or ultra-Orthodox, or B, Larry David creations. I'm not sure if this one will be about deeply identified, but there is a bar mitzvah involved, so some Judaism has to take place. The plot revolves around a tragic loss and one of the protagonists turning to substance abuse. Either way, I'm hoping this will be authentic about family and addiction. I've seen a few reviews complaining about how the story is kind of slow, so for me, that makes me kind of hopeful. As a final caveat into the world of TV adaptations, I was pleasantly surprised by the level of conservative Mastori Jewish observance in The Plot Against America. Philip Roth was pretty adamant that his characters be seen as firmly assimilationist Jews. And there was only really passing reference to Jewish practice in the book. But the show took us into a synagogue where a real-life cantor davened the prayers. 2 characters had a brief conversation about the Talmud and the Mishnah. We got to see their wedding and the synagogue board arguing with the rabbi over his politics. All I can say, with deep respect to the dead, is suck on that, Phil! Seriously, I think it comes down to following a wider variety of characters on the show, rather than blatantly disregarding Roth's wishes. But it was nice to see a level of Jewish observance which wasn't caught up in the extremes of all or nothing. So, there are my offerings for the Maybe Midrash Readathon. Thank you to Steve, Felicia, and Jason for giving me this opportunity to celebrate Jewish American Heritage Month in books. I'm looking forward later in May to videos and maybe discussion about what we've taken away from our reading. I'll be back on this channel later this week with my latest Friday Reads video. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.